All right, guys, here we go. Welcome to my coverage of England versus France from Twickenham Stadium. It just went off the air a few minutes ago. And guys, if you missed the game, I am here to give you some shocking news. England has defeated the heavy favorites, France. It was by the finest of margins, 26 points to 25. An outcome that not many people saw coming, even the most diehard fans of the Red Rose. But if you've been following England closely in the past year, you know that they have been there or thereabouts for a long time. They have been this close to beating top sides like the All Blacks, like France, who have been a formidable nemesis for them. They did get the win over Ireland last year, but otherwise they have disappointed. And they did go down to the Irish last week over in Dublin in the first round of the Six Nations, a result that only underlined their underdog status, even playing at home. The prevailing logic was that Dupont running the show, pulling the strings, no chance. No chance of beating a team like France with Dupont in resurgent form after his little, well, gold medal winning dalliance last year with the Sevens. And we'll talk about that a bit later because I'm seeing the impact of playing Sevens on his game. But even some Dupont heroics were not good enough to get France home in a game where they looked quite rusty at times. Hey guys, I see a few of you coming in here. Full disclosure, like almost every person in the States right now, I'm sick as a dog. I was going to do this as a pre-recorded video to edit out any coughs, but bear with me. I've got my cough drops. I was just too excited. I felt we needed to do this live. So guys, as usual, here's the format. I'm going to give you some top-line thoughts. Then we're going to kind of go back through the game. What were the turning points? Where was this lost for France? Where did it go wrong for Le Bleu? But let's start with what we were thinking before kickoff. We were thinking, how the hell is England going to beat this team? Well, Steve Borthwick has shown that he's prepared to experiment. He rejigged his team. He looked at Marcus Smith at playmaker last week. He said, I think I can do better in that space. What if we put Marcus Smith at fullback? He did a little bit of an All Blacks move here. You think about Richie Mwanga playing at 10, Bowden Barrett going to 15. It's a little bit of that concept, the dual playmaker concept. What if we take Finn Smith, put him at 10? Now we have Marcus at the back. That opens up counterattack. Is that going to be more exciting? Is that going to get more points on the board? We'll talk about that, but that was one of the most notable changes. This was a team stacked with Saints. I wrote in my notes, man, the Saints have come marching into this game. Northampton players everywhere. The other key issue here was the Lucy's rejig. Now, last week, you had Ben Curry, you had Tom Curry, the twins, starting at 6 and 7. You had Earl at 8. So you basically had three loose forwards, three open side flankers in the loose forwards. Well, there was a feeling that wouldn't really cut it against France this week because you're going up against sheer size. Sheer size and sheer speed and sheer skill. If you're undersized in that back row space, they could make life very difficult for you. So we brought in Tom Willis, a big lump of a man. We put him at 8. Kept Tom Curry out there. We put Ben Earl at number 7. And ultimately, you have to say it was a good decision because there were some pretty crucial turnovers in this game that I think ultimately won it for England. I'm looking at the stats here. Turnovers won. There weren't a lot, but France won 3 and England won 6. So they doubled the turnovers. That gave them just a little bit more pill to play with. And ultimately, it was enough because their possession was 62% to 38%. England had a lot of ball to play with here. Now, they didn't always use it well. Frankly, the conditions have to be blamed. There was a lot of rain over at Twickers before kickoff. It was drizzling during the game. But the main outcome of that was that the ball was like a bar of soap. It was slippery. People were making uncharacteristic errors. You wondered if it was actually going to be a deciding factor in this game. Hello, mate. Good morning, Julian from JD280. Thank you, my friend. It is a good morning. I thoroughly enjoyed that game. I'm a neutral, so my heart rate stayed pretty low. I'm a Kiwi, guys. I'm an All Black fanatic, but I like good rugby. And I actually saw some pretty damn good rugby today, despite the conditions. It was a classic game. It was a classic game. It was a classic boil over. It was an outcome no one expected. And I think what we're going to dive into today in the live stream is, did France lose this or did England win it? So let's kind of get into the recap here, guys. Fabian Galtier versus Steve Borthwick. In the 6th minute, there was a scrum penalty to England, and that was for a French prop losing his binding there. But England then didn't put the ball out on the full, and you started thinking, okay, every little mistake like that could be a killer for England. You felt that they needed to be at 100% capacity. Whereas, to be honest, you felt like the French might get by on 80 or 85%. That's how good the French are right now. I'm glad you enjoyed it, JD280. It was a great game. Who were you rooting for? Let me know. Going for the French or going for the English? Or were you neutral? Didn't care. So England didn't put the ball out on the full, and Ramos returned the ball with interest. You started thinking, England just can't make mistakes here. They've got to be clinical. JD280, congratulations. You were going for England. Listen, man, I picked England to beat the All Blacks at Twickenham last year. That's how much I respect England. I think they have been so close. And I will tell you, I was actually delighted for you guys today because this isn't a result in a vacuum. You've been there or thereabouts so many times. You've lost so many close games. Look at the losing margins in these English games. It's always by like 1 to 7 points, pretty much every time. I think the Springboks may have blown them out a bit. No shame in that. Happens to the best of us, quite frankly. South Africa is the #1 team in the world right now. But otherwise, England have kept it super tight. So I knew you were going to get a big scalp. This is the scalp that the fans wanted. Might revive Borthwick's career, might change the complexion of the English side going forward. Lots to think about for the future. But hell yeah, that's awesome. I'm stoked for you. Now, in the 9th minute, you had Ramos just cutting everyone to ribbons. I'm going to tell you what his halftime stats were. They're pretty phenomenal. But Curry was getting off the line, playing smash mouth football, tackling anything that moved. And I was a bit nervous about that because England was flying up so hard with that whack ball D, right? Just bam, bring the line speed, bring the intensity. Okay, great. It worked in this instance in the 9th minute. My fear was you potentially inviting some space out wide for Ramos and those two fantastic French wingers to wreak havoc. Again, you needed accuracy from England. They needed to smash the ball carrier, but then D up again. Get those defenders back into the line. Because what we saw in this game was that anytime France opened it up, it looked like boys against men at times. When France came to life, the speed was almost supernatural. So England had to be careful with their rush D, but they were largely accurate with it. Now, France was using some new tricks here. I know you guys are probably familiar with the huge prop, Antonio, for France. Well, he was used in midfield quite a lot to transfer the ball out the back. It's not often that you see a gigantic front rower as the guy who's the link man. But he kind of was there in midfield a few times. Very soft hands for a big man. Kind of looked like a midfielder out there. But he was actually helping the ball get from the loosies to the outside backs for France. JD280 playing the All Blacks as a motivation for England. Yes, I remember you commented last year. Yeah, I think that All Blacks game did teach the English a few lessons. One thing it showed them was that they needed to finish stronger. They got run down in those autumn internationals, not just by the Kiwis, but even by the Aussies. And I think there's a sign here that maybe they're getting a little bit more out of their bench with the way they've rejigged it. They got a guy like Chandler Cunningham South, not a feature today, but he's going to bring impact off the bench. And just, yeah, having another Curry on the bench is pretty good. I have a feeling they'll probably persist with Ben Curry on the bench. Now, in the 20th minute, as I said, England had so much ball. They were hammering the French try line, but then there was a turnover, and France goes 70 meters. Again, it was Ramos. Dupont ignited it. Pardon me, guys. But they just couldn't finish. So the French were creating opportunities, but they were not clinical. They were not the French that we're used to. Of course, the English fans jeering them didn't help. I got to tell you, Twickenham showed up today. There was just a cacophony of noise at all times. And look, these French players, I'm not saying it got into their heads, but yeah, this was a real home game for England in the best sense. Swing low, Sweet Chariot was absolutely deafening in the late stages of the game. So a fine effort from the English fans at Twickenham. Now, in the 27th minute, you really saw that the English were here to play. They kept keeping the ball alive. There were times in the past you felt they might take the conservative option. They were running the ball back from their own line. There were some pretty big bombs put up by England, and that's critical. They weren't kicking for land like the French do. The French are a little bit more of a territorial kicking game. In my opinion, that's the game they like to play. England was going for the up and unders and bringing amazing kick chase speed, which was pretty instrumental in putting a lot of pressure on the French. And what actually happened was the 13 for England, Lawrence, he turned over the ball. So they were starting to get some dividends paid from that line speed on the kick. England kicked well again this week. They did last week. They kicked again very well this week. In the 30th minute, again, you had the two sides going at each other back and forth, the ball turning over back and forth. But it was Dupont who ultimately broke and got free. And it was Pinot, the winger, who he had a broken toe, I believe. He was back in good form this week. He actually grubbed it ahead for his other winger, BL Biarritz, number 11. And he got on the board. So now France had some points. And you just got the feeling that when France hit top gear, there was a fluency that England couldn't match. I mean, England was effective with their kicking game. The rush D was very good. But in terms of that coast-to-coast attacking style, recycling the ball quickly, even though the English number 9 Mitchell had a blinder today, it still just didn't look like it ever hit the top speed of France. Now, France were stumbling and bumbling their way through this game. Looked like they had a few too many red wines last night. I mean, I don't know what it was, but psychologically, they just did not look like themselves. Not often you see France rattled, but they looked that way in this game. And yet, when it came together for them, it was majestic. So you just felt that England might lose this game because of those bursts from France. So the feeling I had watching this, though, was that basically the idea of moving Marcus Smith to the back was a winner for England. The counterattack was excellent. It did create more attacking opportunities for England. He basically seized that opportunity with both hands. His goal kicking we need to talk about. England needs a more reliable goal kicker than him. But in terms of attack, yeah, I like what I saw there. Now, in the 34th minute, England had a scrum. They were 5 meters out. They brought the pick and go, and they got advantage. And then you saw one of the ugliest tries I've ever seen, although if you're an Englishman like JD280, it's probably one of the prettiest tries you've ever seen. I mean, it's a miracle England didn't knock the ball on because France was bringing the line speed. But England knocked the ball back a few times. They were literally just batting the ball back, almost just fumbling it back, but maintaining possession until Ollie Lawrence got his mitts on it. Beautiful fend, and he dots down. So suddenly it's 7-7 at halftime. There's hope for the English, massive underdogs. But there was a feeling in the crowd, oh my God, maybe the boys can do it. I want to tell you one halftime statistic. I don't normally get into halftime statistics because I think that they don't necessarily matter that much. They're often reversed completely in the second half. But the one that stood out, Ramos, the French fullback, 145 meters in carries. That's just in the first half. If you did that in the entire game, you would be stoked. To do that in 40 minutes was phenomenal. He was certainly the most penetrative back on the field, wearing a blue jersey or a white jersey. He was outstanding on attack. And, I wrote in my notes here, this was a good game despite the mistakes. Yes, the handling errors were frustrating, but there was a real intensity to this game. And I got to give credit to the English. They brought that intensity. There was just a psychological edge to them, almost a feeling of digging their heels in. Guys, we cannot drop another game at Twickenham. You had the full house there and full voice cheering them on. I think England came into this game with more emotional intensity. I'm not accusing the French of being complacent at all. This is the most professional French team I've ever seen in my life. I don't think they do complacency. But England had an edge today, man. In the 42nd minute, we really got our popcorn factor. The entertainment value went through the roof because you had this insane back and forth passage of play. It literally went from one 22 to the other 22. The ball was getting turned over through a mistake, goes to the opposition. They run it back 70 meters, a turnover, a mistake, bam, the other team runs it back 60, 70 meters. It went back and forth like this at least 3 times before some sanity prevailed and the ball got put into touch. And man, again, lots of errors in the first half because of the environment, because of the weather, but some passages of play like that were just vintage and super high entertainment value. So in the 49th minute, the French had the opportunity to go for a line out or take the kick. They took the points. So the French went up 7-10. I actually liked that decision because it just felt like a stalemate. You factor in the rain. It just felt like one team needed to get a little bit of momentum going. So some easy 3-pointers looked like a good plan for France. Try and rack those up. Just start to create a little bit of scoreboard pressure. In the 51st minute, you had an England line out near the French try line. They won some scrappy ball. It got cleaned up by Mitchell, who had to be one of the best players for England. But England was caught flat-footed, and they turned the ball over. So, promising signs from England, and then not really finishing it off. That was a recurring theme today. Yeah, JD 280. First 10 to 15 minutes was intense. And 7-all at the break, yes, not what a lot of people were expecting. A lot of people honestly thought France was going to blow them out. I'll level with you guys. I felt if England was off today, it could have been a blowout. I could have seen France putting a 15-point win on them. I'm stoked. As a neutral, it didn't happen. It was a hell of a boil-over. We love a good plot twist in rugby. Yeah, I mean, even this English fan here saying that he wasn't expecting it at all. I think that's right, honestly. I spoke to a few English mates, and they were dreading this game. I had one mate who attended it live. He said, man, I just hope it's a good game. Almost conceding the inevitable loss. It's not what happened. Now, in the 53rd minute, Ben Curry came on. Tom Willis came off. Felt he did well at 8. Again, he brought the size. He brought the starch. Maybe not the mobility of having 2 Currys and Earl out there, but he did the job. And again, you needed that beef against France because they're a hell of a big team. So we got another scrum penalty in the 55th minute. Now the French were up 7 points to 13. But it was worth noting that there were about 10 handling errors to France at this point. So even though they were now kind of in control, starting to kick some penalties, starting to get some scoreboard pressure happening, they kept botching the tries. They kept botching the try scoring opportunities. And you can blame the weather, you can blame them being a little bit off psychologically, but whatever it was, you just didn't get that finishing from France. And 10 handling errors, that's pretty staggering for them. They're a pretty clean team. Now, in the 57th minute, England restarted. They claimed their own restart. Mitchell breaks. Finn Smith kicks. Pardon me, guys. I'm sick as a dog here. And Freeman claims it. He had a height advantage over his fellow winger. Biarritz, and look, England scored. Amazing. So suddenly it was 12-13. England still trailing. Marcus Smith shanked it. And I think it was due to the clock pressure. You really saw the impact of that 60-second countdown today. Marcus Smith butchered a couple of kicks, crucial kicks. Didn't cost them the game, but it could have. So in the 60th minute, you virtually got an immediate riposte from France. You saw Biarritz and Damien Penaud combine, left-right wing combination, gets over the line, but Ramos misses the wide conversion. So it's still a close thing here. 66th minute. England has relentless phase play. Mitchell's hitting every ruck. Love to see the stats on the ruck speed. It looked lightning quick at times for England as it got to the end of the game. Very good recycling here. Mitchell was giving superb service. But ultimately, England went to the boot. Didn't work out for them. French killed the ball. French end up incurring a penalty in the 67th minute. And this was the shocker for England. This is where all the English fans, I'm sure JD280 here in the chat, had their head in their hands. England shanks it. You're thinking, where's Owen Farrell when we need him? Now in the 69th minute, another England penalty. French ill discipline. They had to go for the corner after that shank from Marcus. You couldn't go for the 3 points. It was not guaranteed. They go to the corner. They get the line out clean. They pick and go, and they bloody score. And they made it look so easy. I don't understand how it happened. France was napping here, guys. France was asleep in the last 15 minutes. Uncharacteristic. Don't know what got into them. And it was Finn Baxter, the baby-faced assassin. He looks like he's still in high school. He's a good front rower, though. Looks can be deceiving. He might have those big, rosy, cherubic cheeks. He's a killer, man. I like this guy. I think he's a real comer for England. He got the ball down. Finn Smith takes over the kicking duties after Marcus's rather poor previous attempts. And he nails it, and the English crowd is incredibly relieved. Now they're up 19-18. Oh, my God. Wow. The commentators said, England fans, they're in dreamland. I feared it could turn into a nightmare. I knew France was going to score again. Because any time England landed a blow, France hit back pretty much immediately. And sure enough, it happened in the 74th minute. Dupont found Penaud. And I mentioned earlier Dupont's amazing sevens run last year, which led to a gold medal for the French. Well, you saw that with the audacity of this play here. He ran into a thicket of defenders. He still managed to get away a miracle ball. He still saw the space. Goes through the hands for France. Biarritz scores. Amazing game for the two French wingers. Prolific. Looks like France is going to win it all. And yet in the 78th minute, a dual turnover. Earl and Curry get the ball out of the ruck. Don't know how they did it. Good body height. Perfect technique. They get in there. And now the English are kicking to the corner. Jamie George is on, former captain for England. He throws it in clean. You know, the crowd was holding their breath because if you look at the line-out statistics, England won 77%. France won 100%. France have a very good line-out. It was a well-oiled machine today, despite France not playing at their best. England's line-out looked ropey at times. Guys, I promise I'll be better in a few days. I just didn't want to miss this live stream. This game was too exciting. Thank you for bearing with me. I really appreciate all of you watching here. It's great to see. So Jamie George throws it in. They win the ball. And somehow, off a simple out-the-back wraparound, Elliot Daly dots the ball down. It was too goddamn easy, guys. France was asleep again. These were not sweeping, huge, multi-phase tries that England put together. These last winning tries, pretty basic stuff. Pretty basic stuff. Some pick and go, retaining the ball, quick recycling, switch around play. Daly goes up the middle, dots the ball down. The crowd is delirious. Finn Smith nails the conversion, and there you have it, 26-25. The loudest roar I've heard from an England crowd, probably in years. And as a neutral, yeah, I loved it. I did love it. I love a good boil over. It, to a certain extent, puts this Six Nations tournament on its head. Because you felt it was probably a fait accompli that it's going to come down to France and England. France and Ireland. Well, England's put a spanner in the works today, guys. They've shown they're actually in the mix. If they can play to this level again, they're going to be up there. So this competition is going to go down to the wire. I still think that Ireland-France game will be critical. That probably is going to decide this tournament. But today the Red Rose said, man, don't forget about us. Don't forget about us. We've been knocking on the door for a while. Today we got the result. So I'm stoked for them. I think that the ploy of playing Marcus Smith at fullback was the right one. I think the counter-attack was great. It probably brought the outsides into the game more, took a little bit of pressure off him instead of all of that pressure being on him in the pivot. You had his namesake, the other Smith, Finn Smith, able to mix up the kick, pass, run options. Did kick very well, has some educated feet there. Good kicker of the ball. Got some tries off his kicking. But I think, if anything, it just took a little bit of heat off Marcus Smith, shielded him a bit, let him do what he does best, which is counter-attacking, instinctive rugby. He's that instinctive flair England needs. They've always been a good team. But at their worst, they're stodgy, they're a little predictable, and they can look a little flat on attack. I'm just calling it how I see it, guys. Yeah, sneezing and coughing going around, matey. Thanks. I'm hoping to feel better soon. Look, my girlfriend did me dirty, to be honest with you. I was quite sick over Christmas. I got better, and my girlfriend just gave it to me again, but that's all right. I live in the States, guys, and I'm in Portland, Oregon, and everyone I know is sick, honestly. All my friends are sick, so it is what it is. But I didn't want to miss this live stream. It was too exciting. So yeah, good choice there with the 10-15 switcheroo. And I'm liking the loose forward mix. I like what Willis brought at 8. Bit of size, bit of impact. I'm not sure that France needs to go back to the drawing board too much. You know, I mean, I just think it was an off day. And in the Six Nations, you know, if you're off 10%, you're cooked. You need to be firing on all cylinders. France wasn't today. For whatever reason, there'll be lots of post-mortems on this game. They did not look like themselves. Sure, Dupont made some magic. Ramos was phenomenal running from the back. And wasn't enough. Wasn't enough. Going to need a better effort going forward, certainly to beat Ireland. Oh, you're an ACT, Canberra. Yeah, I lived most of my life in Australia, actually. 20 years there. That's why I have a kind of a mixed accent. Born in New Zealand, grew up in Australia, lived in the States 10 years. Well, the Brumbies are a good team, so I love that for you. Guys, it's been real. I need to get on the cough drops. I've got a very exciting new setup coming. Got a new PC coming. Got a new little microphone that's just been installed. We're going to take this live streaming thing to the next level because I'm loving it. I'm loving that you guys pop into the chat. I really am trying to build a community here because I love talking rugby. There's not a lot of people to talk to about it in the States, so you guys are kind of my rugby mates, and I absolutely love that. Appreciate having you here today, and I promise my more dulcet tones will be back soon. I will be doing Super Rugby, JD280, yes. Yes, I'll be doing weekly recaps of Super Rugby once the Six Nations winds down. So look out for that, guys. And then I cover every All Blacks game. I'll never miss one. Cover select Springboks games. Going to cover all the British and Irish Lions. Tons and tons of rugby coverage coming your way. So if you've enjoyed this, please like. It helps more people find it through the YouTube algorithm. Hit subscribe. If you're an English fan, check out my links below. I'm actually an official affiliate of the Fanatics store. So get you some great prices if you follow the link. Get your English jersey, get some merch, get your British and Irish Lions merch. It's all down below. But I want to thank you guys for joining me today as I coughed and sniffled my way through this stream. But you know what? I may feel like ass, but I had a hell of a time watching that game, and I've had a hell of a time streaming with you guys. It's definitely brightened my day. So thank you for joining me, and I'll be back for another one real soon. Love you guys. Take care. Catch you later. Bye for now. Boop. Here we go. Goodbye.